it's not a very static role or environment because the whole market's evolving, the technology's evolving. If you're at a specific company, the way the company grows and so on. So I think it's a very dynamic atmosphere, which is the fun part for me. I love organized chaos. So for me, it's a great experience. Every day is unique. Every day is different. I'm learning constantly versus being in one type of roles.
Welcome to Mobile Growth and Pancakes, a podcast by StoreMaven. We break down how and why mobile apps grow. In each episode, we invite a mobile growth expert onto the show to break down a specific mobile growth strategy, how it worked, why it worked, and what they would do differently. I'm your host, Esther Schatz.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Mobile Growth and Pancakes. I'm your host, Jonathan Fishman, VP Marketing here at StoreMaven. And today I have with me Novel Rahman, who's Senior User Acquisition Manager at Playco. Hey, Novel.
Hey, how are you?
What's up? Do you want to introduce yourself a bit?
Yeah, for sure. Hey guys, my name is Novel. I'm currently a Senior User Acquisition Manager at Playco. I'm currently running our user acquisition efforts for a few of our games, initiatives, and marketing lead on a few products. And super excited to be here today and really discuss, mobile marketing, which is what we all love.
Awesome. I know that Playco is a bit different in terms of the publishing methodology of mobile games and specifically putting in an emphasis on instant games. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think Playco is a very unique company, especially in the gaming market, just specifically because of the way we acquire and really serve to our users and the platforms that we really utilize versus others. So, first and foremost, Playco really our main focus or our main growth area really is social play. And what that means is we utilize, social platforms that everyday users are already using, such as, Facebook, Line, Zoom, etc. And we develop very unique and fun gaming experiences on these platforms. So users are able to connect with their friends and play together on platform or on their social media platforms without having to leave, which is very unique and different than the traditional gaming market, because usually it's within, an iOS or Android packet, and usually you have to leave the platform to play the game independently, right? Separately from the platform itself. And second to that, a lot of times it's very difficult to connect with friends and play, because if your friends aren't on the same app, or if they aren't connected in the community, you're not able to really engage. So I think that's why, for us, we have a really unique product, because it's a fun game to play, and B, it's so easy to play with your friends that are already online. I think it's just a really, unique experience that we try to deliver to our clientele.
Great. I think I saw that some of these games are also available on Zoom, as a game on Zoom, right?
Yes. Yeah. Facebook has, we've had a few successful games live on Facebook for some time now, and Zoom has been a new addition in terms of our platform expansion. So it went live a few months ago, and we have 2 games live that we've developed on there and growing rapidly. So so we're currently, that's our latest addition to our stack.
Awesome. I definitely think Playco is a very forward-thinking company, because instant games, I see it as the future. The world where you have to install a game to play it, or basically to install apps. I think it's going to end at some point. I'm not sure when and where the tech would be there all across. We know that the instant games exist on the Android ecosystem with Google Play. On the App Store, it's still not there on iOS, but I definitely think people want to play games wherever they are on the platform they are at the moment, without doing anything heavy, such as installing a game. So that's pretty exciting. And can you talk a bit about your path and how you got into mobile marketing?
Yeah, definitely. So, and actually, before I do that, I do want to quickly, mention or quickly acknowledge your point there. I definitely agree. I think, the great part about it is, we work in partnership with the platforms itself, and every platform is now recognizing the value of hosting a gaming, environment within their social media channels. So I think for us, it's a great fit, because that we can really capitalize on those opportunities and really just build unique experiences, to your exact point.
Yeah. Just one other point there, I mean, I heard recently about Netflix getting into mobile gaming as well. There's a ton of benefits for any platform that gets users to engage with it a lot, such as Netflix, Facebook, Zoom, Line, everyone, to keep users in the platform. The thing is, instant games is a great way to do that. The thing is, there's a lot of legal questions there with the App Store and Google Play, and a lot of them are trying to prevent some companies from, having an App Store within an App Store. So we'll see where that goes. But it definitely seems like the world is moving there slowly.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, especially in matured markets where majority of the online viewership, especially for this genre, is on mobile versus desktop now, right? Especially for games. It's just, I think, a really good opportunity for the entire ecosystem to evolve in that direction. So,
cool.
To your latter question, I guess, about my path to mobile marketing. So I actually come from a business background, but I kind of got into marketing because I didn't see myself, doing accounting or finance or anything of that nature. I really just enjoyed marketing in general. So initially, I kicked off with I was actually in an agency called Mondo Media, so I was in performance marketing there, and then from there migrated into doing user acquisition on the product side. So it's a little bit of a unique path because usually, folks just go right into the UA and kind of, grow within. But I think for me, it was a great launching pad because on the agency side, you get the opportunity to really work with multiple partners, multiple products, multiple verticals. And because it's more of a marketplace environment, you get to work with demand and supply to really understand exactly how the landscape is working, right? What's working where and so on. So I think for me, it was a great experience. And I was there for about 5 years or so and grown in different roles. But it was a great experience because you get to understand firsthand how affiliates and how performance marketers attack a campaign in terms of getting it to grow, how you growth hack in different channels or doing the same thing in different ways to improve top funnel metrics and those things. Really understand, okay, how are the gurus in the industry doing it, right? And then kind of connecting that back to the user acquisition partners that we work with, understanding goals and products, and to really kind of, match the two sides, right? So from there, I moved into the UA side. Sold at a company called W Games, and it's basically a social casino-based company. And I was there on marketing side as well, so similar role. And it was a slots app essentially. So it was a good segue from I guess the agency into the app world just from the product side, because now I was able to understand, okay, what actually is happening under the hood, which I think is super important, right? So I think with those two experiences combined, it was a really good, I think, holistic understanding of like, hey, how does the actual market work end to end, right? And I'm very data driven. So after that, I did a master's program in marketing management and analytics. And then from there, I transitioned into Playco. And Playco, I guess, to one of your earlier questions, it's a very, I guess, different company culture. Whereas, I think a lot of gaming companies have divisions of departments where you have marketing folks that are handling more UA-based or marketing initiatives. And you have a BI team that's handling data analysis, and you have live ops and community management and all these things. And we also have similar structures and teams in place, but we're encouraged here to really kind of stretch beyond our role and really understand our environment, right? So like we have access to really any of those things. So for me, it was a great, playing field to understand, kind of get in and not just do marketing, but kind of see the net impact of, how a campaign works on the product side, what the analytics are, and really dissect end to end. And so I think it was a good, amalgamation of my background and kind of having a platform to really kind of utilize all levers to be a more effective marketer. So I think that's a really cool experience that I really appreciate.
Great. And we chatted about the fact that there's a lot of levers to grow besides just programmatic and the normal suspects, basically, with UA, which is, if you go to an average mobile game company, most of their budget would go to Facebook, Google, a selection of different ad networks, and that's it. Some people go into influencers these days, but but I know that you guys are doing a lot of creative things. So how do you think you can diversify basically, UA channels to get into new audiences and new markets?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And absolutely, based on my experience in my career, definitely, obviously, Facebook and UAC eat up 60% plus, if not more, of the budget. And then you have everything else diversified into different channels. But for us, it's a little bit unique because we are an on-platform based or HTML5 based game. It'll inevitably be easier to always market on platforms. What I mean by that is, if it's a Facebook game, marketing through Facebook ads, simply because users are already in the medium, right? Otherwise, there are additional friction points, right? Of having users log into your Facebook app to, if they're coming from, let's say, UAC or Snap or any other channel, right? And that goes the same across all our different platform games. So I think for us, it's a little bit different in that regard. But there are a lot of, I think, advantages of that, right? So when because we're working with Facebook specifically, we're able to actually be more creative in the way we target users, acquire users, and really kind of cultivate the user lifecycle, I would say, versus an app that you just don't have the access to, right? So I think for us, it's really about, there's two approaches. One is really about really taking advantage of the platform itself and fully stretching to all cylinders there, and then from there looking beyond to see, hey, are there other ways to growth hack and try to find users to come through and so on.
Do you view yourself as a growth hacker? What do you think about the term?
I like to believe so. I think I think growth hacking has many definitions and applications of things. So I would like to say that I believe that I'm a growth hacker. And when I say that, I think there's, different ways, right? Like growth hacking, I think for me is not just understanding the marketplace, but also understanding what your product is, right? Understanding what your user target audience is, understanding what your propensity curves are, your proxy events, all these different things that you have in your tool set, right? Then to be able to kind of craft together a strategy that is not common or that is not conventional, in my opinion, right? So for me, a lot of that is kind of, what I always try to push, especially here in Playco as well. Like, let's say for marketing on Facebook, for our Facebook games, like, I can run a AAA campaign, sure. But how else can I be creative with the tools and access that I have to try and get ahead of the industry or get ahead of the curve of our competitors? Because obviously it's a very competitive space, and so on. So I think that for me, that's the definition that I like to do.
Cool. And without giving away any secrets, can you give us an example of something creative?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, very high level, I think, like Facebook. Let's talk about Facebook. I think it's a very common platform that everyone's familiar with. You have various different types of campaigns, and Facebook's great because obviously you can slice and dice and really hyper target and find your niche audiences.
Oh, by the way, I mean the shift. I mean the fact that you're an instant game company gives you an advantage in terms of because for mobile game companies now, the deprecation of the IDFA or the access to the IDFA basically prevents them from doing hyper targeting the way they used to before. Right. For you guys, it's different?
Yes. So, pros and cons. So the pros of this is, with the programmatic landscape, the way it's moving, and obviously privacy first, and, just the fingerprinting attribution, the stress that it's currently undergoing. So there's a lot that's, I think, happening in the mobile ecosystem that I'm sure a lot of developers and gaming companies are very concerned with, and rightfully so. But I think for us, we have a little bit of an upside, I would say, because because we are within platform itself, it's not an external user. So what I mean by that is our games are marketed to Facebook users themselves versus an app trying to get into a Facebook user's distro, right? So for us, there's an advantage there where, we don't have to deal with attribution, especially for iOS, that the entire industry right now is dealing with, right? Now, saying that, obviously there's challenges because the ecosystem at the end of the day is really based on an auction system, right? So we definitely feel the pressure, let's say for our Android CPM, because everyone right now is obviously beefing up on Android users, obviously. So we feel the indirect pressure, I would say, on some of our bids or some of our campaign types and markets and so forth. But it really is a result of just the market reacting to the current condition versus, access to some of the privacy settings that others are facing and dealing with.
Cool. So we were talking about creative ways on Facebook specifically.
Yeah. So I think, so like I was saying, so I think on Facebook, one great part, obviously, I think, AAA is a great autonomous feature, similar to UAC, to really run app-based campaigns and so on. But I think a challenge of that mechanism is that you really take away the creativity or the ability to really kind of design, marketing bets, right? Whether that be on a market, whether that be on a user segment or so on. So I think, for me, first and foremost, I think it's understanding what your product and user lifecycle looks like to really understand, okay, who is your target audience? How long are they? What's the average session time? Understanding different milestones or different user journey points, right? That a user progresses through and understanding, okay, what are proxy events? All these things first, because then okay, if you get a user to X point, there's a probability of Y% of them getting to your ultimate point, whether it be IAP, whether it be ad monetization or whatever the end target is. But I think, when you reach for the end without really having data to back it up, especially on platform, you're going to pay hefty fee for it, right? But if you understand what your propensity curve looks like and different proxy events, all those things, then you can get a little bit creative, right? So I think with Facebook, if you understand your gaming ecosystem very well, then you can start getting creative, because instead of running like a AAA campaign or an install campaign and waiting to learn and so on, you can make bets, right? You can say, hey, instead of me targeting for installs for 2 weeks and then I'll move it up and to train the algo, I can go out the gate and bet X dollars to pay for a user that gets to level 50 or whatever the respective goal is. Because I know that level 50 users, 10% of them will progress to purchase intent or whatever. And I'm just making these things up for broad application. But if you understand it, you can then go and really hack together unique marketing bets on Facebook, for example. That otherwise, if you didn't know, you'd have to kind of start from scratch and kind of see how it reacts and so on, right? So when I say growth, I think that's what I'm referring to, using Facebook as an example.
Cool. And you mentioned to me in our conversation before this episode something about content marketing and using content marketing also as another way to diversify basically your UA methods. What do you do in those areas?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, when I say content marketing, I think there's a lot of applications and definitions of it. So I think when I say content marketing, or when we were talking about it earlier, I was really referring to the usage of, landing pages or pre-qualifying experiences for users before they're presented with the game, right? So again, going back to the Facebook example, right? And it's definitely worth A/B testing and see what the performance looks like. But I find, especially on Facebook, because the user experience is so seamless, and I'm not talking just about Playco, I'm talking in general for any gaming app, because it's so seamless, because you see an ad, you click, and then you go out to the App Store, for example, download and play and so on, right? So it's seamless in a way where the average, if you're running a video ad, for example, the average view time of a video is between, I would say, 5 to 10 seconds. Because I think when it initially came out, it was very strong, but now the market's aware, right? You can really tell what is an ad, what is not. And if it's disingenuous, or if you just are not interested, you're going to scroll right through, or within 5 seconds churn, right? So it's not really a lot of time to deliver either value out of the product or really explain what it is. So I think what we see most commonly happening, and Facebook is really good at it, is they'll basically show impressions to based on user likelihood, right? Like if a user already has other slots apps installed, they'll be served with more slots ads because they know the user's already aware of the industry, the vertical, the game style, and so on. There's not a lot of knowledge awareness needed, right? Whereas if you're doing something completely new, it's very hard to kind of like relate in 5 seconds or 10 seconds. What is it? Like, what is a puzzle game to a slots user, for example, right? So I think that's one barrier, right, of the programmatic platform environment. So I think when I say content marketing, I think it's a unique way because especially on social platform, we're seeing this new trend or emerging trend that, if you can captivate a user using content that could be fictional or non-fictional, depending on, what the goal is, usually you have a much longer screen time or share of voice versus just running a video ad, for example. So I think, it's worth A/B testing, in my opinion, instead of running traditional video ads for app install campaigns or static ads, whatever the case is, to try and taking a user through a landing page. So I'll go back to like the slots example, right?
Mhm.
Like a big part of slots, I think, is obviously you're tailoring to social casino and folks that are, casino goers and gamblers and so on, right? And everyone kind of knows more or less like what the app is or what the game is, right? Whether real money or social casino environment. But like imagine taking a user to a landing page where you pre-qualify them using, again, fictional or non-fictional, depending on what it is. But let's say it's a real money casino app, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you actually have winners that are winning real money, let's say in the US or UK, wherever it is, right? Imagine instead of having just a video ad talking about the game, like making an appealing content ad that said, winner of the week wins $1 million or whatever the reward is, right? I'm sure it's going to captivate a lot more users that are in that genre because like, oh, someone won $1 million. Let me learn more, right? And on that page, now you have like a one-to-one opportunity to really sell, okay, hey, here's our winner. Here's how they won. You can win too. Like here's an app, download and play, right? Or whatever the case is. So I think it's building or it's basically preconditioning a user to the value of the app in a much more captivated experience versus just a 10-second video ad, right? So when they're playing, now they're already kind of in that mindset, right? To continue to play and get to that $1 million goal that's kind of already preset, right, before they start playing, versus the otherwise where if they're just coming into play, they may play for a little bit and start comparing to other apps that, oh, I don't like it, and so on, churn, and so forth. So that's kind of what I was referring to in terms of content marketing as an example. And I've definitely seen my personal experience, obviously it's more expensive, 100%, because you're adding additional flow. You're going to have a drop off in click-through rates and all these things. But I think ultimately, that's what I was saying earlier, is really understanding your ecosystem end to end, because yes, CPI ad on Facebook may cost you $3 to $5 and a landing page maybe 10 to 12, let's say. But what is the ultimate CPA? Because if you're optimizing your KPIs towards, let's say, a ROAS, and usually it's LTV driven, right? So if it's ROAS or whatever the case is, I think it's good to understand your flow, because regardless of what you're paying up front, it's all about what your CPA is in terms of payback, right? Mm-hmm. So if you can map the entire funnel, sometimes I'm willing to bet you'll find wins where even though you're paying a lot up top, that user quality is significantly higher for it to back out end to end, and then so on. So that's just an example. I know I talked for a long time, but that's just an example.
No, it's really insightful, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, with Stormaven, we started our way with A/B testing App Store pages, and basically testing how that influences different users to install and to do other things within the app, depending on if it's a game or an app, or is it registration or finishing a certain level or making an in-app purchase. And we definitely saw that the creatives and the messaging on the App Store page affects what users do in the app. And I agree with you saying it's a trend, because I see a lot of it, a lot of these flows of directing users to landing pages or the ad creative itself being just much more contentful, and trying to reach high quality users that way. And I think it's becoming a trend now because before, I don't know, let's say a year and a half ago, before iOS 14.5, most marketers that were focusing, or UA folks that were focusing on iOS, had the benefit of having Facebook reaching these users for them. They just told them, I want more users that made an in-app purchase. Here are they. They reported who these users were to Facebook. Facebook did their magic in their black box, created a lookalike audience, and voila, you have high quality users. Now you have to do this work. You have to influence users or find a funnel basically to convince these high quality users. And content is a great way to do that. So I see a lot of these flows recently of funneling users through to a landing page, making them more educated and more aware of different parts of the game or the app, and then probably seeing a much higher average quality for these users in terms of LTV, retention, or just basic engagement with the valuable parts of their games and apps that lead to, at the end of the day, revenues. And I have even examples from conversations I had with people outside of gaming. For example, Twitch. Everybody knows them as an app to basically watch other people playing games and streaming themselves. But they have a lot more than that in their app. They do podcasting, and there's people watching Sunday football on Twitch. And that's less known, but creating these funnels and leading users through that and creating that expectation, or at least the desire for these users to find these areas in the app, lead to much higher quality for these campaigns that are basically probably measured by how many users are engaging with these parts of the app. So it's a really insightful point that you brought up.
Yeah, definitely. And StoreMaven is great, and I've used it, before in other areas as well. I think it's a great way to get especially for live ops, right? If you're doing any kind of ASO, ASA, style initiatives, right? To really understand, okay, if I change the imagery or the messaging or the description or just overall feature placements and so on the App Store, what would be a reaction, right? Like doing a control test to understand any lift or net impacts and so on. So I think StoreMaven is a great platform for designing those type of experiments and so on, which is very important because especially for app marketers, like once the user leaves an ad and gets to the App Store, if you're not seeing a high ranking score, or if the App Store page isn't revealing, appealing and so on, usually we see a very high bounce rate, right? So just being able to kind of design a full user experience, I think is super important.
Yeah, and thank you. And I think that now with iOS 15 basically introduced a few features such as custom product pages. Suddenly you have more than one page you can use with different campaigns and ads. Before that, you had to choose. I mean, usually folks aimed for either the lowest common denominator, or they had to choose, okay, I want to target that audience and I'll make my page about, appealing for that audience, and that's it. I have to give up on other audiences. Now you don't have to do that anymore. You can create a funnel for each and every audience you want to acquire. And that basically allows them to do, to acquire more high quality users. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's actually honestly a great point. And I think, I think creating a customer-centric marketing experience is so key, right? And that stems from the way you target the cohorts of users you're targeting up top, the ads they're seeing, the App Store page, like you mentioned, and ultimately when they enter the game, right? Like really using deep links and so on to really enrich that experience, I think goes a long way versus doing very broad-based, experiences and so on. So.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. That was very insightful. We are about to run out of time. So I wanted to ask you a few questions we ask all of our guests. First of all, if there's someone that is an aspiring mobile growth marketer, they want to get into mobile marketing today, do you have one tip to give them?
It's a good question. I think, first and foremost, I think it's a very fun field. So I think having passion for it, I think is very important because every day is different. Like it's not a very static role or environment, because the mobile market's evolving, the technology's evolving. If you're at a specific company, the way the company grows and so on. So I think it's a very dynamic atmosphere, which is the fun part for me. I love organized chaos. So for me, it's a great experience. Every day is unique. Every day is different. I'm learning constantly versus being in one type of role. So I think for me, advice to anyone coming in to the market or to the industry would be really just first make sure that's an environment that you want to be in, right? And really understand and accept that reality. And the second is just, I guess, the hunger for growth and learning. I think you can get obsolete and outdated very quickly if you just kind of sit on the sidelines. So I think it's always about pushing the boundaries, understanding what others are doing, what's working, what's not, and trying new experiments and so on to really kind of continue to learn and grow. I think those things are very important for anyone coming in and wish you all luck.
Cool. And that gives, that's my segue into the next question, which is, what's your favorite content or mobile marketing content that you read?
Yeah, for sure. So I like to read a lot of like Tech Radar, Crunchbase, just to kind of see, who's moving up and down in terms of what they're doing. It's kind of a signal of like, hey, who the next mover is going to be and so on. And then I also like to do a lot of, Facebook ad library digging to see what,
that's fun.
Other competitors and so on, what they're doing and so on. Also, I love affiliate forums. There's a lot of, Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups and individual chat channels and so on. But people just talking about like industry, like, challenges they're facing, some of them share their wins and so on. So I think it's a good bouncing board just to kind of get a feel of things. So I know it's a very non-conventional way of things, but I would say those are very low-hanging fruits just to kind of get a good feel of like, hey, what's happening out there? And then obviously on top of that, you have all the blogs and forums and so on that are more public with companies that are releasing articles and so on. So I would say it's good to have an arsenal of different types of news outlets or information outlets that kind of, formulate your own judgment and approach to marketing.
Awesome. And almost last question, what's your favorite pancake?
I'm a big buttermilk and chocolate guy, so I love that. Every time I go to IHOP, that's the thing. I think it's called Cinestack pancake. I think it's called, where it's like a buttermilk, chocolate, and cinnamon, and so on. So that's my one. So yeah, that's
my favorite as well. It was my favorite until one of the guests told me to start eating bacon and maple pancakes, and
yes,
since then, yeah,
so actually it is good. Like maple syrup and bacon actually is a very weird combination, but it's so good.
Yeah, and you're in Canada, you have real maple syrup.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, cool. So lastly, if folks want to reach out to you and chat about some things or just to get to know you, where can they find you?
Yeah, happy to always connect with folks. I would say LinkedIn probably is the best place to connect. And obviously, I think you'll probably share a link or something like that, right?
Yeah.
To myself. So yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect and go from there.
Awesome. Cool. So Novel, thank you very much for doing this. It was a pleasure. And I'll speak to you soon.
Take care. Bye.
And that was Mobile Growth and Pancakes. To find out more about StoreMaven and how we can improve App Store performance, visit storemaven.com. And then make sure to search for Mobile Growth and Pancakes in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at StoreMaven, thanks for listening.